housing employment needs risk.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, it's me again. Ostensibly, or at least the face value is about the inspector's response to the Warwick District Plan, which he said that yes, we pass a duty to cooperate, but notwithstanding that, he does not feel that our plan wholly addresses the housing needs situation. And whilst he makes reference to the windfall situation, probably the big thing, which is not exclusive to Warwick, is that the sub-regional unmet housing need has not been addressed, and therefore he feels that we can't go forward. Now, that being the case, that actually applies to all of the local planning authorities in the housing market area. So it applies to Coventry, it applies to Rugby, Nuneaton, look, we're actually looking at lot of planning authorities. In theory, it could apply to Stratford, although there is clearly an inconsistency since their inspector did not comment upon the unmet regional, the sub-regional housing need, even though the inspector is sat within a matter of months. That matter aside though, the inspector has said to us really that we should withdraw our plan, sort out the sub-regional housing need, and then come back to him with what we've discussed it. We have written to the Secretary of State and asked him to call it in, because I suppose to sum it up, we feel that the inspector's response is a disproportionate response to the situation that we face. Nevertheless, although we at the moment have still not heard back from the Secretary of State, nor even directly from any of their officers, it's felt that in order to expedite the situation for all authorities, not just for our district, that if we can agree a timetable and a broad process for addressing how we tackle the sub-regional unmet housing need, that's going to be a benefit to everyone and would stop other authorities falling over the hurdle that we've stumbled at. Now, the timetable is set out, table 1 within the report. We've been asked to agree the process and timetable. And I think, more importantly, given that I think probably as members will be aware that housing numbers can be somewhat sensitive politically, that the planning officer group is supported by the establishment of what's called a political working group. It's a member steering group for all intents and purposes to, I suppose, help steer that process along in more detail. And then the third recommendation is that a working memorandum of understanding, as part of the outcome of some of this work, comes back to the next meeting of the EPB on the 29th of September. So those are the three recommendations. In fairness, some of this work is already underway at an officer level. Officers have been meeting just last week to try and take this forward. But clearly, it does need a very clear and I have to say unanimous political endorsement. Otherwise, if there isn't, then we can't clearly proceed. Now, that's not to say at all we agree on outcomes, but as we clear at this stage, the EPB members are only asked to agree the process and the timetable. Clearly, outcomes is the debate for another day.
So we're looking at whether we agree the process, and so at the September one, okay, comments?
Chair, just one thing, and I apologise to Chris because I didn't raise this with him before. I think it would be helpful if any notes, any communications from this group are copied to Chris Wakeman at the LEP, the policy planner at the LEP. It's something that we're trying to sort of iron out to make sure all the comments are right. I think if that could be included so that either get a chance to go if they need to go on anything that's going to have a particular impact on the work of the LEP, at least we get that right. And that's going to come more generally. There's a note from Martin and I that's going to come out fairly soon about that, to make sure that everyone's actually combining what we're doing.
Okay, you're happy with that? Right. Yep. So it's got to be unanimous. We all... Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Well, I just want to draw attention to the fact that that Chris Elliott did identify the fact that the inspector of Stratford had taken a different view to the one at Warwick, Yet we seem to be in the same box as far as duty to cooperate is concerned, that we've got a very big tick in that particular box, and we've been working together at a communal issue for some time, probably for 18 months, 2 years. We've been aligned on that. So there is a concern because our inspector at Stratford has given us some extra work to do. We have effectively virtually concluded that work. The results of that is expected to be in the public domain on Friday, and I am due to be taking a paper to Cabinet and full Council on the 20th of July, which is 2 weeks today. Clearly, that if we are successful through members of the Council supporting it, will then have to go out to public consultation, because the housing numbers have certainly risen above what we agreed around this table about 18 months ago. But the main issue is that, as I say, what I don't want is to have some extra housing need which is going to force our inspectors to say, well, why didn't you hang around a bit and take notice of this? None of us want to hang around in getting our plans established or even adopted. So there is a note of caution from Stratford, although that we are on the table with you all and wouldn't wish it any other way. What effect is likely to be taken of the work that we're doing, not through GL Hearn, right, but through environmental resources management. That's because when the rest of you got GL Hearn on board, we were already working with ERM, and we've maintained that continuity with them. So that is a concern.
Right. But we need to be unanimous. You voiced the concern because it has to be noted. Having said that, we need to be unanimous, and I understand it. So, we're going to ask for a vote. Are we unanimous in the bidding process? Yes? Any against? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Infrastructure delivery plan.
Report in two parts. The first is a brief presentation of the infrastructure development plan, which this board considered in January. Comments from that meeting, and taking forward the agreement for the plan to go through the swap over joint planning officers group for update has taken place, and what's presented at Appendix A is that updated version. It contains narratives from each of the planning authority areas, as well as links to the individual local plans in the state they happen to be in at the moment through different processes. So that's presented Appendix A, and the recommendation associated with that is that the board confirms its ongoing commitment to maintaining that in the way that we are, and to consider the content and format of that draft. The second part of the report relates to the development of a single spatial plan, which is associated with the infrastructure development plan, which is something quite different. It's a visual representation of the employment land development and residential development across the EPB area. I attached two example appendices to the report, which is showing the mapping of the development in growth corridor areas, just by way of example to show what can be done, to get feedback from the board, if that's the way you want us to go. All areas of the area can be shown in that way: town centre, city centre, supply chain, growth corridor, etc. So really it's presenting it at this early stage, having done that work, for the board's view on those visual maps.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, comments, questions? Councillor Saint.
Sorry to come back again.
No.
I'm offended. Because
You're
on
not.
Appendix B2, the knuckle growth corridor,
What page are we on?
God knows what page it is. It's the map at the end, the second map. How many times have you heard me asking to put an S on the end of the knuckle? How many times?
I can't remember.
No, quite, because it's been too bloody many. And I'm sure that Mark's heard me say it as well. And here we have a proposal before us, which again, all transport links stop at Longbridge Island, basically, or the LE in Leamington. And really, if we are going to be an intelligent, cooperative group, we really have got to move away from this type of approach that digs itself into the agenda of 10 or 12 years ago. I remember sitting in this very room, you know, with other officers around the room, discussing knuckle then, and in its early stages. And it doesn't seem to mature into something that embraces a sub-region that you want us to be part of. So I want to know why the extension of knuckle into Stratford has been messed off. Because if we're going to have a strategic infrastructure plan, it's got to end at the borders of the sub-region, not at the borders of Warwick District.
It'd be amazing if that's one of the things we could deliver as a combined authority. Anybody? Your offence is noted.
A really small technical one that's going to come out because of obviously the notes from another office meeting. I don't know whether or not we're stuck with growth corridors, but the piece of work that's been starting to be done in connection with the previous item might not just be looking at growth corridors as the special path, so you might just need to keep it flexible about how you then show it. Just to match up to that sort of really, really small, inconsequential, but an extra plan for.
Sorry? Sorry, come back.
Let me just say,
Can I just say something in terms of the representations that we've got on the two maps? They are two examples. The first one, which is the A45 east-west corridor, is more developed. It's the one we started on first. They noticed that the grids and the detail about residential sites and employment land is much more developed. The second one, an example, going north-south of the grid. But the fact is, all areas, and whichever way you want to cut it, and going back to Chris's point, if you want a certain cut to look at a certain area, it's all possible. This is just demonstrating what can be done and is not the full extent of what can be done.
Can I come back? Because
yes,
on the linking with the previous article, the inspector, Peter, who's examining Stratford's local plan, has in fact identified the need and the upwards pressure on housing because of the employment forecasts that we've included and agreed with him, which were based in the strategic economic plan. Now I'm sorry, if we're going to be part of all that, I'd be expecting that any development in the Stratford area to be part of that growth corridor. So I'm going to dismiss what Chris Elliott said there. He's really adding fuel to the fire by suggesting, well, this is only a growth corridor, it's not a transport plan. I'm sorry, the growth corridor goes all the way down to Little Compton, which is the southernmost part of Warwickshire. They don't expect too much growth down there, but they do expect to have some degree of, they're close to Gloucestershire, foreign worlds to some people. But there we go. So I don't want to hear that suddenly economic development stops at the end of knuckle without the S. It's just not on. It's just simply not on. I see people grinning, What am I supposed to be doing? Protesting about nothing? Or am I trying to pretend that I'm part of an organisation which the rest of the people around the table think I'm not?
To make two comments, please. The first one is in relation to the S on knuckle, Stratford. I mean, knuckle as it stands is about the scheme and the plans that are in place at the moment. There is not a plan for a station at Stratford, a connection from that would extend knuckle into Stratford. It may be that there is in the future, but there isn't at the moment, and that's why there isn't an S on knuckle. And if there is a worked up strategy or plan to deliver that Stratford station in the knuckle scheme, well then surely that would change. The second thing to say is in terms of the maps that we've got. I mean, these are samples, and what we're looking for is feedback from the EPB as to whether this is the right way to go and whether they look like the sort of thing that people have in their minds. Clearly, the discussions around the housing management area and the changes to housing numbers and and the challenges that we've got in terms of employment land mean that the single spatial plan and the infrastructure delivery plan need to be responsive, living, breathing documents. And that they will be live in terms of the data that is stored in the geographical information system, which will be updated as and when housing numbers, employment land, etc. change their designation. So what we're very much looking for today is a really in principle that this is going in the right direction. And as things like the MOU and the process of revised housing numbers come on stream, then we will be able to update and adjust the infrastructure delivery plan and the single spatial plan program.
Thank you. Okay, if there's nobody else, then we have to take recommendations. Thank you. I think now there are no other matters of public business which I have decided to take. We move now to the private part of the agenda. So again, with apologies for the fact that we were late starting, I do have to